Hello and welcome back to the Gold Newsletter channel. My name is Kai Hoffmann. I'm the EdJR Mining Guy on Twitter and the CEO of the SOAR Financial Group. And together with Brien Lundin, I'm the host of this channel. And today we're doing a company introduction. We're joined by Dennis Higgs. He's the president over at Austin Gold. And the company has a really interesting project in Oregon and a couple other states in the US as well. But they just put out some drill results from Oregon. So we figured we need to talk to Dennis. We need to learn more about it and figure out why they're listed only in the US. Why aren't they listed on the venture? And lots of those questions lined up for you today as well. Before I switch over to my guest, just a quick reminder, if you like what we're doing, please hit that subscribe button, hit that like button as well. And of course, we're doing this for you so you can learn about the companies and potential investment cases. So make sure and leave a comment as well if we're asking the right questions. What are some of the things we should ask in your opinion? So that way we can get the perfect information out of our guests for you. So thank you so much for that. Now, let me introduce my guest on the screen. Dennis, it's great to see you again, my friend. Thanks for joining us.
Guy, thanks for inviting me. Thank you.
Absolutely. Yeah, Dennis, let's start with a quick company introduction. 60 seconds. Who's Austin Gold? What are you guys up to?
Sure. So Austin Gold, we are a gold exploration company listed on New York Stock Exchange, the NYSE American, and the symbol is AUST. Very briefly, I'll give you a way to remember that. AU is the symbol for gold, and ST is the symbol for street. So Gold Street, if you can't remember a symbol. Anyway, the foundation of any company, of course, is its people. We have an experienced team with a proven track record of exploration, discovery, mine finance, mine development, ESG, and mine operations. And the Austin Board of Directors have been involved in the building of $3 billion plus companies, including Silver Standard, Predator Resources, and Energy Fuels. We are exploring for large gold deposits in areas known for hosting large gold deposits. And of course, the prize is potentially worth billions of dollars. So in the mining company life cycle, the biggest returns can accrue when a discovery is made. So that is Austin Gold Corp in a nutshell.
No, fantastic. Great intro. A lot of teasers in there that we need to follow up on, Dennis, of course. And the second question I like to ask in these interviews is about the cap structure as well. If you could run us through that so that we're on the same level, and then we can continue.
Sure. So we have a very, very tight and small capital structure. Issued and outstanding shares is 13.25 million shares. Warrants and options about 3.5 million. So fully diluted shares issued and outstanding is 16.8 million shares. And we're well funded for our exploration programs for about the next year and a half to 2 years. We have over US about $9 million in our treasury, and with only 13.25 million shares outstanding, we're actually trading close to cash value. And management owns about half of that. So about 50% is owned by management.
Fantastic. Yeah. To talk about pot committed. Fantastic. 9 million US. What level did you raise that at?
So we did our financing. That was an initial public offering in May of 2022, and it was done at $4 US per share. So raised about $15 million. We still got well over $9 million left in our treasury.
Wow, fantastic. Any warrants options outstanding? I know on the NYSE it's not that typical. I'm just looking, anything that could be an overhang on the stock, of course, because in these times, warrants can be, what do you call them? Deadly. Right?
Yes, we have warrants and options outstanding about 3.5 million. Warrants is 100,000, and the options are basically management. It's management's really a significant participant in this company.
No, fantastic. Yeah, 50%. I haven't seen that in a while, I have to admit. So, really good. Appreciate that. And of course, since we're talking capital markets, we have to talk about why you're listed on the NYSE, why you're not listed on the TSX or TSX Venture. I'm curious why you made that decision there, Dennis.
Sure. So I built a previous company called Your Honor's Energy, listed it on the New York and Toronto. And we found there was a significant advantage to being listed in the U.S. Our trading volume typically was somewhere between 5 and 10 times in the U.S. market on the NYSE American than it was on the Toronto Stock Exchange for when we had Your Honor's Energy. So with this company, I decided to go direct to the NYSE American and we did not list anywhere in Canada. The audience is 10 times bigger. They like to play. The shares trade every day. And of course, you're raising money in US dollars, and our projects are all in the US. So it made sense to us to have US funding.
Yeah, I have to ask, but there's no plans to do a list or anything, like especially in these in these times right now. Do you see any point in doing that?
I do not. I mentioned we did our IPO at $4 US. If we'd gone to list in the US, on the Canadian stock exchanges, we would have been a penny stock during the penny offering. So no, we're very happy to be in the US and not at this time contemplating a Canadian listing.
No, fantastic. Yeah, it makes sense. Like, why would you go? Like, market sentiment anyway is not in your favor, as you mentioned. So you'd be a penny dreadful, right? And you don't want to fall to that level. Dennis, you mentioned you have projects in the U.S. I think it's time to dive a little deeper into those. You recently put out some results from the Stockade Mountain Project there in Oregon, which, in my opinion, it seems to be the flagship a little bit, just based on how it's presented. Curious if I'm right, if that's the right takeaway from the presentation.
Sure. So Stockade Mountain in Oregon, we're currently active on Stockade Mountain. I would say that Lone Mountain will become our flagship, but let's talk about Stockade just for a minute. So it's in Southeast Oregon. It was previously drilled by 3 major mining companies, and that was back in the 1980s and 1990s. They were looking for open pit type deposits. So their drilling was shallow, and the average depth of all the holes drilled back in the 80s and 90s was about 430 feet. But what they found were significant gold in veinlets, what's called a stockwork. If you imagine a shattered windshield, that would be, those little cracks would be filled with gold. That's what a stockwork is, and that's what we have at Stockade Mountain. So no drilling had targeted the high-grade veins that are mineable by underground methods. These veinlets where you get a stockwork at the surface, they typically get richer at depth. And of course, they typically have a feeder system, a feeder vein that brought the gold closer to the surface to those veinlets. So these projects where the feeder veins tend to get richer at depth, and it's the feeder vein system that Austin is drilling for at Stockade Mountain. But Lone Mountain is our project in Nevada, and one of our projects in Nevada. And it's 20 miles east of the Carlin Trend and 12 miles south of the Jarrett Canyon District. Over 93 million ounces of gold have been produced from the Carlin Trend, and approximately 9 million ounces of gold has been produced from the Jarrett Canyon. So within 20 miles of our Lone Mountain project in Nevada, there's well over 100 million ounces of gold has been mined. So, and overall, this north central part of Nevada has produced more than 160 million ounces of gold. So the large gold production and current reserves places Nevada among the largest active gold producing jurisdictions in the world. Lone Mountain comprises about 13 square miles of a highly mineralized lower plate window in the middle of one of the largest and richest gold districts in the world. And a window is where erosion has carved a hole in the upper plate and exposed the lower plate. And it is these lower plate carbonate rocks exposed in the windows that host these large Carlin-type gold deposits in these districts. So this Lone Mountain project has been owned by one family for over 60 years and is arguably underexplored. An extreme example of that is they had a shed in Elko where some of this 60 years of past data had been stored. And when we asked for the keys to this shed, they didn't even have the key. We had to go cut the lock off. So anyway, those are 2 of our projects. We're excited about both of them. A little bit different. One's a vein type system. The other one is a large Carlin type project. So we're excited.
Yeah, fantastic. Absolutely. Yeah, Nevada, personally, one of my favorite jurisdictions. Yeah. Permitting is always a thing in Nevada. So I'm curious, like, what your situation is with permits, exploration permits, drill permits, maybe plan of operations. I'm going a little maybe too far here, but curious.
Yeah, We
where
can
you're at?
discuss that. Sure. So Nevada is well known for permitting, developing gold mines, etc. The process for your initial permit is a 5 acres of disturbance. It's fairly easy. You give notice to the BLM. It doesn't take very long, 2 to 3 weeks, maximum usually a month or so. They can get back to you, and it's usually not a problem to get that permit. In Oregon, it's a little bit different process. We still deal with the BLM. That process is pretty much the same as Nevada, and it takes more or less about the same time. But the difference in Oregon is once you get your BLM permit, your Bureau of Land Management permit, you must then apply to the state of Oregon for the next level of permit. And so the state itself has a completely separate permitting process. So, for example, at Stockade, we got the permit fairly quickly from the BLM in Oregon, and then it took us about 9 months to get the state level permit. So this is just for drilling. So it takes a little bit longer in Oregon, but the process is there, and it's working. We're able to get our permits, no problem. So that's the permitting process.
Okay, no, fantastic. Thanks for clarifying that. Because Oregon as well, like I know there's a couple of companies in that area around you as well. So I'm starting to get a little more confident or comfortable with Oregon personally as well, because there's a lot more activity, especially in that area you're at in Eastern Oregon, Southeastern Oregon.
Yeah, a quick comment on Oregon. You know, a man-made state border is not a geologic border. So just because you've got a border between Oregon and Nevada doesn't mean that the geology stopped at that Nevada border. So the interesting thing that's happening in Oregon is that going back in the 1980s and 1990s, it was basically understood that Oregon was not going to allow open pit mining. So a lot of the exploration work that some of these big companies have done in Oregon, they basically walked away. But that's why we have an opportunity there today. If these projects, for example, if our Stockade Mountain Project was in Nevada, it probably would have been discovered years ago and maybe even mined out, assuming there's a deposit there. And we don't know for sure, of course, at this point, if there is a deposit there. So Oregon has become very interesting. There's a lot of activity there now. The permitting process, there's a company called Paramount Gold with their Grassy Mountain project. They're going through permitting for an actual mining operation, and they're paving the way. So we believe that Oregon has become a good state to be active.
Absolutely. No, fantastic. Thank you. Thanks for that. Lone Mountain, I just want to understand a bit more of the history of the project. You mentioned it was family owned for 60 years. I'm just kind of curious what kind of data you inherited. What did you find in the shed, and how usable is it?
So sure, fair enough. So that project there was a past mine, a small one, silver lead zinc, back in the 1940s going to 1950s. And then geologists recognizing the area, well, of course, that had a past mine on it, he started acquiring the ground, and he acquired a very large area. It's 454 claims, which is huge, actually. And it completely covers this lower plate window, this exposure to the lower plate rocks. So what he did then was, of course, you had the Carlin district discovered in the 1960s. And then, of course, massive discoveries. I mean, there's 1 or 2 deposits in the Carlin trend that have over 25 million ounces. Gold Quarry, for example, and Betsy Post and so on. Those are big gold deposits. So, and these were discovered because of one of these lower plate windows. So this geologist then started, it was his family that still owns it today. He started allowing other companies to explore on his project area. Newmont was there. In fact, they were there in the 1960s, and again, I believe it was the 1980s. But, you know, of course, we have a lot more understanding, a lot better understanding now of these large Carlin type systems and how to discover them. And of course, you know, what we're looking for to find one of these big systems. So our knowledge today is going to, I believe, allow us to better explore this particular project. What did we find? Well, there were some past drill holes. I think Tech Cominco was the last company to go in and explore on this project as a major. And they had a multi-hole drill program planned. But after they'd done a lot of surface work, they'd done geochemicals work, rock chip sampling, and so on geologic mapping. But they stopped the drill program. They think they drilled only 1 or 2 holes because Teck, parent company, decided to get out of gold exploration. They just decided to quit gold altogether, and they just walked away from it. So that gives you an example of some of the work that's been done in the past that we now have access to. The one negative about it is, of course, it was back during, pre-internet, pre-computer use. And so a lot of the documentation of all these results is on paper, and we've had to digitize a lot of it. But we're doing that, and that's making it also quite interesting, because now with our digital availability, we can manipulate the data and take a better look at how these things are all, the various historical information is all coming together. So we're pretty excited about Lone Mountain.
No, fantastic. Yeah. No, the question now is, of course, how are you planning to use that data? Is it a bit too early to talk about exploration plans at Lone Mountain, or do you have that mapped out a little bit already?
Yeah, no, we have it very much mapped out. We plan to go in and do a lot more. We've already done, for example, some geophysical work. We did a gravity survey last fall. We plan to do more geophysical work this year. We plan to do geophysical, rock chip sampling, stream sediment sampling, soil sampling program. You do this all on a grid over the property, and that will refine targets for us. Structures, geophysical results should give us an indication of structures, and these types of deposits, you need to know where the structures are. So we'll do all those things during the summer, and then hopefully be into a drill program in the fall. So, but we want to refine those targets, those drill targets, by all the surface work.
Fantastic. I like what you're saying there, because I like baseline geology first and then drill.
Yeah.
I've seen too many companies fail that just use the drill for exploration. So I like that. So that makes a lot of sense. Also, Dennis, you have a third project, the Kelly Creek project, as well in Nevada. Any attention being spent on that as well this year, or focus on Stockade and Lone Mountain?
Stockade and Lone Mountain will be our priority this year. The Kelly Creek project is interesting. It's in it's in the valley. Kelly Creek has gold mines. It's surrounded by gold mines, north, west, and south. About 70 million ounces of gold have been produced in and around the Kelly Creek project. But those deposits are in the mountain ranges, and where the rocks are sticking out of the ground. You can sample the rocks, you can see the structures, you can map the geology. Kelly Creek is in the valley. So of course that brings us to the question of, why would we take a project in the valley where you can't see the rocks, you can't see the structure and geology and so on? Well, the little brief history on that project is another company that was exploring Nevada used gold in groundwater sampling program. They did the entire state of Nevada with a gold in groundwater sampling program, where they put a tube, basically pound a hole down about 100, 150 feet into the water table, and suck up a sample of water, and then actually assay it for gold. Now, I know that sounds kind of crazy maybe, but you can get an assay now in parts per trillion. And so this other company did the entire state of Nevada in one of these gold in groundwater water sampling programs. And the Kelly Creek project came up with the strongest golden groundwater anomaly anywhere in the entire state. And you're thinking, well, wait a minute, it's surrounded by 70 million ounces of gold that's been produced in operating gold mines. Of course, you're going to find gold in the groundwater. But the interesting thing about that is, all around those gold deposits, as you get closer to our project, you get a whole bunch of void, 0, 0, 0, 0 ground golden groundwater all around our project until you get right to our actual project. Then you got a screaming, very strong, orders of magnitude golden groundwater anomaly. So the Kelly Creek project is an interesting project. The only little glitch with that one, of course, is, as you mentioned earlier, you're using a drill bit to explore, and that gets a little bit expensive. So we'll see how we go with Kelly Creek.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. Thanks for clarifying that or providing some more additional information there on Kelly Creek.
Sure.
Let's summarize the conversation a little bit and put a bow around it.
Sure.
What would you say the business plan is, Dennis? Like moving forward, like what's the goal of the company? What are you trying to achieve?
So the goal of the company trying to achieve is a discovery, a multi-million ounce gold discovery. And ultimately, on a longer term basis, we have the team and the experience of developing that discovery into a producing gold mine. But it's very likely in our location, in both locations, that we would be subject to a takeover bid. I mean, there's especially, Lone Mountain, if we have a discovery there, you've got Barrick and Newmont less than 20 miles away with all their production facilities. You've got Jarrett Canyon just north. Again, with all their infrastructure for actually mining deposits, it's very likely one of the companies would make a takeover bid. But the other part of your question is, how do we plan to get there? Well, we're well funded. We plan on doing a lot of exploration work this summer. And in a nutshell, before we drill, I can't tell you what is in the ground and whether Austin Gold will have a discovery on our projects that we're currently working. However,
not making any promises, Dennis.
Not making any promises, but we are exploring for large gold deposits in areas known for hosting large gold deposits. And of course, the prize is potentially worth billions of dollars. When there's a lottery in the US, for example, when they have one of these billion-dollar lotteries, there are a lot of people buying the tickets and only one potential winner. But with a potential billion-dollar prize at Austin Gold, if we have a discovery, all shareholders are potential winners. And of course, you can't win the lottery if you don't have a ticket.
I like that analogy. Fantastic. Dennis, very, very last question now. What's some of the next news items you expect to put out? Like anything we should be paying attention to?
Sure. So we've got more. We just finished drilling at Stockade Mountain. So we've got more results coming out of there. I'm looking forward to seeing what those results look like. And of course, we plan to make a lot of news and noise about Lone Mountain.
Fantastic. Awesome. Dennis, really appreciate you joining us here on the Gold Newsletter channel. I think it was a fantastic company introduction and really appreciate the time and effort you put into this conversation. Thank you so much, Dennis.
Guy, thank you. I've really enjoyed this. Thank you.
Absolutely. Yeah. And everybody else, thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed this company introduction. As I said before, please leave a comment, leave a like. This shows us that we're asking the right questions. We're bringing the right companies on this channel. If we haven't asked something that you really want to know the answer to, please put that down below. Keep in mind, this was a company introduction. We can dive a lot deeper on geology and things like that as well, but not during an introduction. We can do that later on, and we'll do that later on as well. So really appreciate your time. I hope this was useful. Leave a comment, leave a like, and subscribe to the channel. We'll be back with lots more. Thank you so much for tuning in.